this is a photo that I took when I was in States. I've done a Photoshop job on it again to sort of bring out the tones and the colour. But what's really interesting about this is the rock face that sort of juts out at the side of the harbour. Really makes this attractive composition. And I was wondering how I was going to get all of this texture on this rock face. So I thought, okay, I've been playing around with brushes in Procreate. Let's see if I can find something that I can use for this. So I sort of ferreted around and pulled out two brushes, and that's the cotton brush or cotton wool brush and the twig brush. So today I'm going to paint this photo using the cotton wool brush and the twig brush in Procreate. So let's get into it. So here we are in Procreate, and I'm going to use that cotton wool brush to get in the skies. I just felt it was perfect for putting in these nice soft billowy clouds, and I use that for, I'm using kind of a blue and a cream colour to get this sky in. So straight away I'm sort of taking the colours slightly off from the photo. I also use that brush to get in the foreground, getting some nice strong colour into the sandy beach. That rock face, that needs some colour putting in. And then once I've done that, once I've got this local colour in, that's it. I put that cotton wool brush away and I don't use it again. And then I pick the twig brush up, and then I decide to work with that for the rest of the painting. I didn't decide at this point, but I didn't change it again. I did the whole of the painting, or the rest of the painting, with that twig brush. And I begin by selecting a few colours off of the colour wheel. I've got these sort of nice warm reds, sort of blue purple, so I'm sort of going for a complementary colour scheme here. And straight away I knew I'd made the right choice, because this twig brush was just absolutely perfect for getting the texture on that rock face. Totally loving it. It would have taken me ages and ages with another brush to get that effect in, but I can see why they call it the twig brush, because it is like painting with a twig. You get these little strands that are just sort of breaking off from the main part of the brush all over the place, and it just saves so much time and added all of this lovely texture to that rock face. So what would have taken me, I got a long time to paint. I did literally minutes. And then I'm using that brush now to get in some sort of wispy strokes for the sandy beach. Totally loving that. Oh, and the blending brush, I set that to the twig brush as well, because I did use the blending brush in the odd place, but not too much. So pretty much working on one layer with this. I go in, start putting the buildings in, and at this point I think I probably select the roof color off the color wheel, and then after that most of the colors I'm sampling off the canvas. And by doing that, once I've got the sort of main colors down, if I sample them off the canvas by holding the pen, well actually I've got Procreate set up that I have to put my thumb on the icon in the middle of the two sliders, and then that pops up the color selector, and then I can just choose it with the pen. That's how it works for me. So by doing that, I keep a nice harmonious color palette throughout the canvas without having to keep without selecting colors and running the risk of just getting too many colors in there. This way it's just kept it really nice and a very limited palette. So what I did with the buildings here, I just started on the right hand side. I got them in a little bit too big. You probably saw that I cropped them and shrunk them down a bit. The first two buildings, I shrunk them down to what I thought was the right size. And then basically what I did, I just started painting the buildings from the right hand side and working to the left of the painting. And I didn't zoom in and out too much. Every now and again I zoomed out just for reference, because if you are zoomed in and you have tilted the canvas, you might not notice, and you could be painting lines at odd angles and things. So every now and again it's worthwhile zooming out. But what I did, each building I painted, like the white building that's going in now, that cream building, I referenced the building on the right to get the proportions of it in the right size and the right place and so on. And then I moved along and then did exactly the same with the next building, and I worked my way right the way across the painting until I got to the right hand side. And I was really pleased because I actually finished not exactly as it was in the photo, but just slightly short, or I didn't quite have enough space to get the last building completely in. But I was really pleased that I'd actually got it so close, just by eyeballing the buildings one by one and working my way across. And that way it made it a lot easier, and I didn't have to keep zooming in and out all of the time. So I thought I'd put a little bit of green in there, and then over painted it a bit with the purple. But then you can see I'm putting the other building in, and then I'm using the same colours that I've got for those sort of trees that are behind the buildings to put in the rock face as well, lifting that purple colour off of the rock face, bringing the greens into the foreground a little bit, putting in the reflection of the rock face. Again, just really loose brush strokes. The twig brush was just so cool. I kind of lost the image there for a minute, and I had to sort of ferret around and find it again before I could sort of pick it up. I just chose what I did for that purple colour. I selected the colour off the wheel, off the canvas, and then went to the colour wheel and just lifted the brightness of it a little bit, so it is the same colour but it's a little bit lighter. The twig brush, I messed about with it when I first was trying it out, and I changed, and because I copied it, and the version that I produced, I changed the size, the max size and the minimum size, because I wanted to be able to paint a lot, make the brush strokes a lot bigger than what the actual setting for the brush was. But that was okay for the max size, but the minimum size, I couldn't get the brush quite small enough, and I was a bit reluctant to change it, because I love this sort of roughness to the edge of the brush. But in the end, to get those small windows in, I had to just go back in and tweak the minimum size of the brush. So if you have a go at this yourself and you use the twig brush, you might need to tweak the max and minimum sizes just to get the right effect. So as you can see now, I mean, the buildings are almost fitting exactly on the canvas to the photograph. So I was really chuffed with that. Just slightly short. I also had one or two of the buildings were a little bit wonky, because I was doing the thing where I was zooming in too much and I hadn't quite got the canvas level, so I had to level them up as well. What I'm doing now, I'm putting in some dark colours in the foreground, and that will help lead your eye into the painting. They are on the photo, but that was fortunate really, because I did feel that they were really useful to help lead you into that picture. And there's also a sort of, I don't know what it's called, a windbreak or what, this sort of little line of stones in the beach, and I wanted to put them in as well, so you can see them going in, and I'll put a few highlights on there. So again, that helps. You've got this sort of zigzag that leads you from the bottom left to the right, and then back into the painting again. So what I do now, I create a new layer, and this is where I'm putting in the shadows. I've been doing this quite a bit recently, where I create a new layer. I've set the blend mode to multiply, and then I paint in some shadows just to make the whole thing pop a little bit. And usually what I do, I paint them in and they're a lot darker than what I want, but it does mean that I can see them quite clearly. And then when I've got it to I like, I knock the opacity of that layer down, the multiply layer, right down to about 40–50%. Then I've created a new layer here, and that's just so I can get some more highlights back in on that little wall going in there, because obviously I couldn't paint highlights on the multiply layer. Putting in a little bit of detail. I'm sort of almost finished. This is one of them that I really enjoyed. This is probably my favorite painting of this year. I really enjoyed it. So fiddling a bit, but then I decided it needed those seagulls putting in. So I've got darker gulls where the highlight of the sky is, and then lighter ones on the dark areas. Get the thing signed. Nothing else to do because I just love it. I'm really chuffed with this. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay sober, painted with a twig and cotton wool brush. If you've enjoyed this video, big thumbs up as always, much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I've got lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.